The Denver Broncos just received some incredible news, and honestly, no other playoff team from last year is in a better position than we are when it comes to the salary cap moving forward. This team is already strong, we're still young, and we're going to have plenty of money to address whatever needs we have. In fact, we have fewer gaps to fill than many other teams with less cap space. The salary cap situation has been huge, and with the way the NFL is growing, there's a lot to get excited about. Thanks to platforms like Peacock, YouTube TV, and Netflix, the NFL is continuing to thrive as the dominant force in both sports and TV. And because of this, the salary cap is rising again. Over the past 2 years, it's increased by $53 million. For context, the salary cap is the maximum amount a team can spend on its players, and this growth is a huge advantage. A big shout out is in order for the Walton Penner ownership group, especially when it comes to how they handled the Russell Wilson situation. If we take a trip back in time just 2 years, we all felt stuck by the massive contract for Wilson. It seemed like it would be years before we could escape the dead cap space it created. But the ownership group, with a push from head coach Sean Payton, made the bold decision to cut Russell Wilson. It was a risky move as it led to the largest dead cap hit in NFL history, but they did it at the perfect time. While we had that money tied up, the NFL's salary cap soared by $53 million, which helped offset the financial hit. They couldn't have predicted how the salary cap would explode like this, but in the end, it worked out. I'm really impressed by their boldness, and it shows that sometimes taking big risks leads to big rewards. Honestly, it reminds me of those moments in life where I've hesitated to take action thinking I'll deal with that later, but seeing how the Broncos took action is a good reminder. Sometimes fortune really does favor the bold. A while back, I used to be 100 pounds heavier, and I always found myself saying, I'll start my diet in 2 weeks. The problem was, I just bought a bunch of groceries and didn't want to waste the money on unhealthy food I'd already purchased. Looking back, I should have just thrown it out and gotten serious about my goals right away. The same lesson applies to any change you want to make in your life. Just like the Walton Penner ownership group did with the Broncos, sometimes the best time to make a change is right now. There's no need to wait for the perfect moment, and as we've seen with the Broncos, fortune truly favors the bold. Looking ahead to next year, things are looking even better than expected. The Broncos currently have about $42 million in salary cap space, and let's not forget the team is backed by the wealthiest owner in all of professional sports in the U.S. This is a huge advantage, and I'll explain why in just a moment. When we compare the Broncos to other teams in the league, we're in a strong position, right in the upper middle of the pack. In fact, there are very few AFC playoff teams in a better situation than we are. The only team with a better cap situation than us in the AFC is the Chargers, who have significantly more money to spend. But here's the thing, while they have more cap space, they also have some major needs that will eat into that money. They're parting ways with big-name players like Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa, so they'll need to bring in a new edge rusher, one of the most expensive positions in football. They're also looking to improve at wide receiver, with rumors about a potential move for T. Higgins. On the other hand, the Broncos' needs are more manageable. We're looking at positions like inside linebacker and safety, both of which tend to be lower-cost free agent spots. That means we'll be able to address our biggest needs without breaking the bank, while the Chargers will likely have to spend more to fill their high-priority positions. The best part is looking at all the teams behind us in terms of cap space and seeing that we're ahead of them, even though we're neck and neck in terms of playoff hopes. It's definitely a great spot to be in as we head into the future. The Colts are another team that has to make some big financial moves, and they're actually behind us in terms of cap space, even though they were right there with us in the playoff race. It's great to see that even with a huge salary cap bump, the Chiefs only have $8 million in cap space. They have a long list of players they need to pay, and we know they need help at left tackle and right tackle, two of the most expensive positions on the market. What's even more exciting is that there isn't a team ahead of us that we're really envious of right now. Sure, the Bengals are a bit tempting because of their strong roster, but they also have some big issues to address on their defensive line. Plus, the $53 million in cap space they have is before they sign wide receivers Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. Chase's deal is rumored to be around $40 million per year, and if Higgins gets franchise tagged, he could make around $20 million. That's going to push the Bengals over the cap, and they'll need to make some tough decisions, including cutting defensive players. Looking at other teams, the Raiders may have a lot of cap space, but they also have significant problems, including a lack of a solid quarterback. The Steelers might be ahead of us in cap space, but they're about to face the reality of needing to pay for a quarterback next year. When you look at all the teams above us in cap space, they each have major needs that are going to require even more spending. One of the biggest advantages we have, though, is our owner's wealth. With a cash-rich owner like ours, we're in a prime position to make some strategic moves. For example, let's say we're interested in signing a player like Nick Bolton or Tonga, who are expected to command big contracts in free agency. If we were to offer them a 5-year, $50 million deal, it would cost about $10 million per year on the cap. But because of our owner's deep pockets, we could structure that deal in a way that gives the player a $30 million signing bonus. The benefit of a signing bonus is that it allows us to spread the cap hit over the length of the contract. For instance, if we do a 5-year, $50 million deal with Bolton and give him a $30 million signing bonus, his base salary in year 1 could be just $1 million. That would make his cap hit much lower in the early years, giving us flexibility to address other needs while still locking in key players for the future. The only risk is if the player doesn't last the full contract term, in which case the signing bonus would count as dead money, like we saw with the Russell Wilson deal. But as long as the player stays with the team, it's a smart way to manage cap space while keeping a strong roster. The beauty of this situation is that we could potentially have someone like Nick Bolton for just $6 million a year against our cap. This kind of contract structure could be incredibly beneficial for the team. Not only are there no teams ahead of us in cap space, but also none of them have the same financial flexibility we do. As free agency approaches, the Broncos are in a prime position with $42 million to work with, and we can address many of our needs even before the draft arrives. With how the contracts can be structured, I'm confident that we'll be able to fill gaps and strengthen the roster. The Broncos have become a top destination for players, and that's thanks to Sean Payton and quarterback Russell Wilson, who have turned this team into a franchise people want to join. With a massive signing bonus available, 300 days of sunshine a year, and the opportunity to work with an elite coach and quarterback, Denver has a lot of advantages. Even star players like Deebo Samuel have expressed interest in joining the team, which shows just how attractive the Broncos are right now. The salary cap is also looking great for the team. Based on the latest league memo, it's projected to be between $277 million and $281 million. Last year, the predictions came in about $5 million higher than expected, so there's a good chance the cap could be even higher than what's currently predicted. This gives the Broncos even more room to maneuver. Overall, this is amazing news for the team. It's encouraging to see how well everything is falling into place, and it's a great reminder that sometimes in life, you can't keep putting things off. Like George Payton has shown with his bold decisions, if there's something you want to do, don't wait. Take action now. Fortune favors the bold, and the Walton Penner ownership group has certainly embraced that mentality. One last thing I want to bring up. There are several opportunities for the Broncos to play overseas, and I'd love to know what you all think about that. It's been announced that the Chargers will open the season in Brazil, and the Jets. This year, the Broncos will also play in London, and the Colts, whom we'll face, will play in Berlin. If the Broncos were to have an overseas game, which one would you be most excited about? Personally, I love the idea that 3 of our away teams will essentially lose their home field advantage by playing abroad. I also really appreciate how Sean Payton has used East Coast road trips strategically for team bonding and building a winning culture. The team's trip last season, where they stayed in a bunker and enjoyed activities like horseback riding and paintball, helped develop that college-like atmosphere and camaraderie. Payton has said he'd love the opportunity to take the team overseas, so I'd be thrilled with any of these games. However, if I had to pick, I wouldn't want the first overseas game to be in Brazil. We saw how challenging the field conditions were there last year, so I'm not too excited about that one. Also, I think the Chargers are a team we can handle pretty easily, so taking away their home field advantage wouldn't have a huge impact. I'd really love to avoid playing in New York late in the year, given the tough weather conditions. If we could pair that with another East Coast game and just stay over there before flying across the pond, that would be ideal. On a personal note, I'd love for the Colts game to be in Indianapolis, since it's only a 3-hour drive from where I live. If the game is in Berlin, that's a much longer trip, which makes things a little trickier. But no matter where the game is, I'm excited about the idea of the Broncos playing overseas. I think it could be a real advantage for us. Sean Payton has shown he wants to build a young, hungry team with a college-like atmosphere, and an international game could be a great opportunity for that. Let me know what you think in the comments. Sound off, Broncos country. As always, we've got a lot to look forward to.